Hello and welcome to this video. Recently I purchased a year 2000 Mercedes ML320 and the rear passenger door lock isn't working. And I took my iCarSoft i980 scanner and scanned the CAN bus system and it shows it as being disconnected. So obviously there's something wrong with it. Somebody's been in there and disconnected it so that it just wouldn't work except for manually. So in preparation for opening up the door panel and trying to repair it, I have bought some of these springs, some UCAR accessories, in case it's one of the springs. These cause machine gunning when they break. And on eBay I also purchased some of these parts here. There's one for the left door and one for the right door. And these sometimes break, these little cam systems. So I'll be taking the whole thing apart and seeing what I can do to fix it. In the meantime, I'm going to pull the door panel off. I'll show you that real quick. And I wanted to mention that the door has airbags in it. Anything with a yellow cable or yellow wire, don't connect or disconnect with the battery connected on the car. If you need to do anything with the airbags, you have to disconnect the battery and let it sit for about 10 minutes. Otherwise, you can create a big problem. So never touch the yellow cables. Those are for airbags only and for the safety system. So don't touch those, and I'll get started here in a second. Okay, the first thing you're going to do is on this door, you're going to remove the little cover that goes over where the door handle is. You can see I've removed it already. To do it, you have to use a plastic pry tool and be very, very careful. This car, or this truck, is 17 years old, so the plastic's extremely brittle. And as I found out recently, most of the parts are no longer available new from Mercedes. They just don't make them anymore and they don't sell them. So in this case, one of the little top snaps broke, so I had to epoxy glue it. I got that setting now. And that was with using plastic pry tools and being very careful. And you'll see how I help alleviate that problem by putting some silicone grease on it when I put it back together. So you're going to take 2 screws out of that. And then over here on the door itself, there's a little plug that says SRS airbag, supplemental restraint system. All that does is cover a screw that goes in the door. So I pull my cover off, and of course my screw's missing because somebody's been in there. And so the next thing I'm going to do is take a plastic tool and go along the bottom of the door and unsnap all the plastic snaps. And then I will take the door off after I've released the manual locking part that goes just above where you open and close it. And I'll also release the cable, and I'll talk about those here in just a minute. Okay, I've pulled the door panel off. As you may or may not be able to see, there's some of these little white plastic pieces that were left behind, and those go actually, they're glued to the panel that came off, but after a few years, these typically come unglued and I have to re-glue them. I've had to do that on a few Mercedes I've worked on. So I'll go ahead and pull those off. You also want to have a box of extra door clips. And I also, when I put the new door clips on, I put a little bit of silicone grease on them so they'll pop in easy. And then if I ever need to take it apart again, they should pop out easy. So to get this off, there's 2 cables that come from inside the door. Actually 3. There's an electrical cable at the bottom that goes to a courtesy light. You have to just unplug it, pull it back and unplug it. And then there's 2 other cables, and there's some good YouTube videos that show how to actually pull those cables loose. They're pretty intuitive. There's really not anything hard about them. They just kind of unhook and or unclip. Also, the airbag is over here. It has the yellow wire on it. And make sure you don't touch anything to do with that, because that could be bad. And unless you disconnect the battery first. And so now I'm going to go ahead and start trying to remove the actuator itself. And to do that, I'm going to have to pull some more things loose, and I'll talk about it here in a little while. All right, I took the door handle off. To do that, there's a 4mm bolt that goes against this piece that goes in here. And when you loosen that bolt, it'll come loose, and that bolt is right there. And if you take off the weather stripping about 2 or 3 inches, you'll see there's a hole that gives you an access for a 4mm Allen wrench. You put it in there just like this, and you loosen this, and then this comes out. And then to pull the handle off, you just pull it back and out. Now that's out of the way. We can proceed now. In order to get the old latch assembly out, I had to take this part off, and to do it, you just loosen these 2 screws here, and it slides over, and then comes out. And then I had to wheedle the old part out by feeding the cables through as I brought it down, and it came out without having to take anything else out. Now I got a new replacement part, and the reason I did that is because I took this old one apart. I was going to try to repair it, and I found too many broken pieces in it, I think from age and the plasticizers drying out. So I ordered a whole new assembly, and the new assembly actually has a different part number. It's 163 730 24 35, and the old one was a 1235, which means this has been improved somehow. So hopefully they made the gears a little better, or maybe out of a little stouter plastic, because we found a cracked nylon gear inside here, and also a locating pin that was damaged, and a couple of things that probably made it so it wasn't operational. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in this genuine Mercedes part by feeding it up. First I'll start the cables through the hole in the door. I'll show you that in a minute. We'll feed it up, and then when I get it up in there, I'm going to put these parts back in. So I'll get started with that here in just a second. Okay, at this point we've put the new mechanism in. We slipped it up through inside the door, and then we put this piece in and tighten the two screws. And there's a gasket that goes here and a gasket that goes here. And then we're going to put the handle in. It's going to push forward. We're going to put the stop piece in here, and it's going to tighten up with a 4mm Allen head. And then we're going to make sure the latch actually works physically. So I'm going to get that done, and I'll show you inside what it looks like here in just a second. Okay, here on the inside I fed the cables from the unit itself behind the airbag, and I did unplug the battery. The battery's off the vehicle right now so that we don't have to worry about anything weird happening. So the cables are here now. It came with a couple of foam things that I presume fit behind the airbag to keep the cable, you know, in the right position. So I pushed them in back there. I just need to plug in this connector, and then I'm gonna actually put on the door handle, and then I'm gonna test it. Okay, at this point I've put this pad back on. It was just stuck on with some tar, and these are all ready to go. The wiring's through here. I took out all the little pieces that stick in here, the clips. I have a whole new set of clips I'm going to put on the panel. So I've got everything back on. I'll show you the outside, but we did test it, and it does close and pulls properly now. So I'll show you the outside real quick. Okay, so I put all this hardware back on. That all works. So now we're ready to go ahead and put the door panel back on the inside, and I'll show you that here in just a moment. I've reinstalled the speaker and plugged in the connector for it, and then I've routed the connector that goes to the little courtesy light at the bottom down to the bottom, so when I put the door panel back on, it'll all line up. So I'm going to show you the door panel, and I'll show you how I put on some new clips. So what I did here on this door panel is I replaced these 7 clips, and these are the genuine Mercedes clips. The ones that were in there were something that was substituted in. And I took some Mission Automotive silicone paste and put it on the clips before I slid them in. I used a screwdriver to help me pop them into place, and I put a little bit of silicone paste on them so they'll pop into the door real easy. Some of these were loose, and I think I mentioned earlier in the video I re-glued them. Not sure how well that glue will hold up. Also, I replaced the top piece up there. It came with the new actuator. And the old one, you just simply squeeze it in and push it up, kind of wheedle it out a little bit, and then put the new one in the same position. Push it in firmly so the clips make. So now I'm ready to go ahead and take this over to the truck and install it. To reinstall this, you simply hook it in from underneath. Then you have to pull it back, get it to go in. Now that's done, and now all I got to do is pop this one in. Goes in the door, and then it clips here. I'll get that done, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, this door lock just clips up in here, and then it clips here. I don't know if you can see it from your angle there, but then you just simply take this whole assembly, put it up here, and then we're going to pop it into place. So I'll get that done, and then I'm going to start putting in the screws. Okay, I have the door fastened back on. I put the screw in here and the 2 in here. They're all 3 the same. I put a little bit of silicone grease on just those tabs so they'll go in, and same thing with these tabs here. So this whole thing should hopefully stick in here. This is one I had to repair because it was all busted up. Well, so far so good. Well, anyway, I've got to pop it in there, and that's easier said than done, it looks like. There we go. So now we're basically finished. We'll rehook up the battery and we're going to test it. Okay, we put everything back together and everything works. I'm going to lock it right now. You can see it locks, unlocks just fine. So this job would have taken about an hour and a half, but we did have to do the video part, so it took a lot longer. If you have all the parts with you, like the door clips, and use only genuine Mercedes, the other ones are just no good. All the various items that we needed, like the door lock assembly itself. If you have all that on hand, really not a very hard job for the back door, pretty easy. And that's all there is on this video. Thank you for watching.